improving communications, and this really has to go to a lot of changing the culture. And I don't know, I mean, I can try, and I'm really working to get this started. We are trying to share with the whole department what the command staff is working on and what we're expecting from them. We're having these group meetings. And then I believe in what I would call a facilitative style of leadership. I try to be as transparent as possible. One of the first days I was there, somebody pointed out that I wasn't closing and locking the door to my office, and this was midday. And I was a little taken aback by that and said that if I couldn't leave my office in a police department when I'm surrounded by people with badges and guns, we had bigger problems than we all knew about. I leave my door open, and I have a table and chairs where people are invited in. So it's very important to me to be as transparent as possible. I believe in being curious, so asking, good questions and asking why things aren't done the way they are. Are there other ways to do them? Another part of being facilitative is to hold people accountable and hold myself accountable to begin with, in what we're doing. Discussing undiscussables, that's a big issue. People, I think, hold on to some of that rather than if we could just be very as forthright as possible with each other. And that doesn't mean being rude like this sometimes the national discussion gets, you get blocked because of all of the emotion. If you can focus on, what is relevant information, what are the facts, and when we look at each other, we believe, that you have good ideas, I have good ideas, your intentions are good intentions, I have good intentions, and let's get to where we're trying to get together as a group. One of the things I keep saying to all of our employees is, where are our citizens? Have we served our citizens today? And when we can say we're serving citizens, that is where we're really being successful. So it's important for us to focus on our interests and not our positions, and that we should be testing assumptions with each other and not just assuming that we know how each other thinks or really feels. And then finally, that we get together and when we're trying to accomplish something, that we jointly design the steps to get to where we're going. I heard Bibi talk about best practices. And I think this is really important for your agency. And the one thing that I would say to you too is that as you think about some of this, when we're looking, for your next chief, one of the things I think that's important is, for the chief to be a team builder, for them not to see themselves as a silo, and for them to have a real commitment to best practice in law enforcement. Chief Bruffman did a lot of work. I mean, it's very apparent to me from going through his online files that he did a lot of work on policy. And so what we're doing is, as a group, we're reviewing it very carefully. We know that policies need to be issued. We know that everyone needs to, be exposed to these policies. And on the high liability ones, they need to be not just, given to an employee and said, here, read this, but we actually need to go over it and instruct them, and they need to sign off on all of that. It needs to be documented. But that's really, really important for us to do. And I always make this point, when I'm talking about accreditation to an elected body. There is not a state, I don't think, or commonwealth in the United States that doesn't mandate an annual independent audit of your finances. And we agree with that. But you take your most highly litigated department the police department, the one that can just expose you to all sorts of liability, and we're not doing any kind of audit or inspection of what's going on in that agency. And with an accredited agency, you have an audit at least conducted every 3 years. So one of my goals is to...
You're committed to March of 19?
I'm committing your next chief to March of 2019, but when they walk through the door between February 1st and February 15th of 2018, we plan on having as many policies and procedures in place as possible so that in March of 2019, which is when you are currently scheduled to face Virginia accreditation, that it's a possibility, to get it accomplished.
We are not accredited now.
You are not, sir. You are not.
What's y'all shooting for accreditation?
When? Or
what?
Well,
I know they have different levels.
yes, we would be shooting, at least at this point, for what they call the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards accreditation. So that's your state accreditation. There is a second accreditation level called the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, and that's a national and international law enforcement accrediting body. It's the Virginia policies. If we can get ourselves accredited in Virginia, you would only be a few steps away from becoming nationally accredited if you choose to do so. I just want to give you and this I think exemplifies some of my facilitative approach, but not all of our policies are going to be this in depth or change this much. But one of the policies read, "Only the chief of police determines policy." What I have told all of our folks is that all employees of the Covington Police Department, whether they're sworn or civilian, should be committed to best practice. And so that's what we're writing, that they're committed to the best practices in our profession of law enforcement. And therefore, all employees are expected and encouraged to make recommendations for change to this manual that we put together based on their current training, research, and or job experience. And then there's a paragraph that commits the command staff to A, a review of any of those recommended changes, and B, that we will get back to them. So we're being transparent, we are being reflective, we are closing the circle on a communication. Because a lot of our folks, part of their frustration was that there would be a policy that would get presented, they would respond to it, and then it wouldn't get issued. And so we have to close that loop. But all of the employees have to understand that the final authority to issue a policy rests with the chief of police and the city manager. Finally, we're looking for a schedule change for patrol. The way we currently schedule it's very difficult. And I've been doing this for a long time, guys, and this makes it really, really hard. And the way we currently schedule makes it almost impossible for us to hold, especially our supervisors, accountable. And it doesn't create team. It actually it actually creates, again, silos. So what we're proposing, and right now we're looking at a January 8th start date, is that we're going to create 4 teams, and that the officers are going to be able to learn to count on each other. We're going to be able to hold our sergeants accountable for the work that their team does. The schedule is going to be very simple now. right now, the first sergeant spends a tremendous amount of time on the schedule, and this is going to be very simple, because on January 8th, when these folks know where they start their work week, it's going to repeat itself every 2 weeks. And there's actually an app for this, which I find amusing, just because of my age, I guess. But I find it amusing. But they can actually, once they get their schedule, they'll be able to. Somebody can say to them, "Well, what are you doing on January 8th? What are you doing on June 30th?" And they'll be able to open up the app, and it'll tell them whether they're working or not. And then performance evaluations. Our performance evaluations are a real challenge now, because there's not, again, a lot of supervisory accountability because of the way the schedule fluctuates all the time. So with the creation of the teams, our performance evaluations will be much more effective and accurate, because there's going to be a direct chain of command. This is my favorite question mark, because it's got made up of handcuffs.